energy to mountains and planet kingdoms. So thank you for sharing that wisdom.
Thank you.
Now, my friends, I'll invite Rev John Scott, spiritual leader. It is my utmost pleasure. A little about him. Rev John Scott was born in Milledgeville, Georgia on September 2nd, 1977 into a traditional Christian home. His religious heritage is 3 generations fundamentalist preachers. From his earliest years, he has always had a love of music, singing in church, and connecting with people. John is a consummate communicator and world changer who skillfully unveils a mystery through meditation, song, or inspirational messages. He makes a cosmic concept of the universe accessible and easy to understand through his visionary teachings. A troubadour and iconoclast who change the energetic vibration in a room with a simple word or phrase. A man who is helping to create a better world by showing people new ways to see it. He is a lover of humanity with a deep desire to be an example of pure presence in physical form. John received some of his inspiration from the teachings of leaders such as Dr. Wayne Dyer, Bishop Carlton Pearson, and Baba Ramdas. He considered himself to be a lifetime student and open to all inspiration. Please have a big round of applause. Thank you so much for being here today.
Hello, everyone. I like to say wherever I go, everybody smile at me. There is a neurological fact, a scientific fact, that if you smile, whether you were happy or not before you smiled, your brain had to go to a happy place to smile. That's one of the reasons I ask you to smile, because that's the energy that we begin to move around this space. I'm going to ask you to do something real quick. I don't know how long it's been since you stood up. So I'm going to ask you, if you will, to stand up a moment, just kind of shake your body, move all of the elements of your physical being for just a moment, kind of shake some things loose. You know, we can have a tendency when you sit down to get a little tired. If you're in meditation, sometimes people think meditation is sleep. So shake it off, just like Taylor Swift said, shake it off. So shake it off for just a moment. And then if you would look at somebody and say, oh my. You know, look at someone and say, oh my, you're amazing. You are powerful. You are beautiful. You're fantastic. I see the divine in you. Look at someone and say, I call you blessed. Healthy, wealthy, and wise. You're beautiful. And I'm so glad I'm here with you. All right, I'll let you know real quick that I am not your typical run-of-the-mill preacher dude. Like, I grew up in church, I'm still recovering. I have 3 generations fundamentalist preachers, and they were all really loud preachers. You know, like they took lessons in seminary. It was like, God, and it was always loud. And I wasn't sure if they were yelling at me or yelling with me or for me. So I grew up in church, and I went to church. I had a really bad drug problem when I was a kid. I was drugged to church on Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night, and every other time they could drag me there. So I grew up very religious, but I didn't know that much about God. I didn't know that much about the divine. I didn't know that much about my own unique and authentic self, because it was always an external religion trying to save me from something. It was either the devil or from my sins. I'm not sure at 5 years old what sins I was committing, but I apparently needed to get saved. And so I grew up in a very fearful environment. I didn't realize that until later on, because it was just the environment that I was brought into. Now I appreciate it very, very much, because it's a great contrast. You don't really understand soft unless you felt rough. You may not understand cold unless you've experienced hot in our human experience. And so I'm grateful for all of those wonderful experiences that I had growing up. And let me just say that I'm grateful for the invitation to be here today. I count it an honor to be here. And so I give honor to Reverend Dr. Temple Hayes, who actually connected the dots and made this happen. She's in California. You drove from Iowa. She was not going to drive from California. I'm not sure why. We'll ask her that later. I was asked to share a talk. I talk a lot. And so I've gotten to the place where I like to be quiet more than I like to talk. I used to like to hear myself talk, but I have since really outgrown that. But since I was invited here to share a talk with you, that's what I'll do. When I started thinking about being with you, because meditation has literally changed my life. So I meditate more than I contemplate. But I typically meditate before I contemplate. And I have this saying that what you contemplate will determine what's the content on the plate that you have in life. And if you are what you eat, then what are you cooking for dinner? So I meditate first because I want to empty the mind before I go into the content. Because none of us are just containers for the mind or thoughts. In fact, all of you probably know this. You're not your thoughts. You're not your feelings. You're not your emotions. You're the one who's aware of it. You're the one who is the witness, the observer of those thoughts, those feelings, and the emotions. So I'm a word guy. In America, we don't speak English. We speak American. But I love the English language. I like to dig into it, and I get into words. I call myself a word nerd. And a lot of times when I'm sitting and contemplating about what I'll share with a group of people, a lot of times it'll come up in 3 or 4 words that kind of have a cadence to them. As a songwriter and as a singer for all of my life, I tell people I don't ever remember not singing. I came out of the womb singing in the key of wah. I was singing to the top of my lungs when I was born. I don't ever remember not singing. So as a singer, as a musician, as a songwriter, maybe that's why I like words. And I feel like that if you don't learn to spell words in your life, words will put a spell on you. And so I like to get a hold of the words and really dig into them and what they mean. And so these 3 words came to mind for all of you today. And I'll say this right up front. I don't have any answers. I have responses. I have thoughts to share and I have suggestions. But the truth dwells within you. And really the greatest masters, as we call them, and the greatest teachers in this life are really just here to point toward what could be maybe a better option. And I like to consider myself a pointer. People will say, what should we call you? When I first came to Florida 2 years ago, I was invited to be the spiritual leader at First Unity Spiritual Campus in St. Petersburg. I was asked that question, what do we call you? And I said, well, my mom and dad called me John. That will do. And they said, yes, but for our website and our business cards, should we call you Reverend, Doctor, Preacher, Pastor? I said, call me whatever you want, just don't call me late for dinner. I finally gave up and I said, well, you know, according to the law in my ordination, I'm a reverend. And I like the term Rev because I like to rev it up. So just call me Rev, that'll be fine. But I know down deep inside that my calling in this life is just to be a pointer. To point us toward possibilities. To point us toward the luminosity. To point us toward all of the potential that we have not outside of us, but within us. And I believe firmly that if we don't go within, we will go without. And many of us in this life, many people in this country, many people around the world are going without in life because they don't know that they can take the journey within. And that's because from the time we are born, actually before we're born, the people who influence our life are doing everything they can to make us somebody. You know what I mean? You grow up and be somebody, be successful, be significant. And I guess they're saying they want you to be significant because they realize you're going to signature or sign your life. And what kind of affect or infect will you have on this life? But the truth is that I think we're on this journey to be nobody rather than somebody. And what I mean by that is to not be attached to this external temporary beingness that we are. You see, I realize this is just my skin suit. I call it my space suit. I get to walk around on planet Earth with this thing, and for some reason it keeps me tied to the ground unless I decide to jump every once in a while. But this is not the true me. The ultimate and essential me is not this white guy who's bald now, from Georgia, who was raised in a preacher's home, who happens to be heteronormative and a part of what we consider to be a majority in this United States. That this is just my skin suit. My ultimate true essence is connected directly with every single one of you, no matter what our cultural differences might be. We are interconnected as one. And I believe that every single one of us come from the same source, and therefore we have the same resource within us. So these are the three words that came to mind for today. I'll share them with you. I won't be long-winded. That's not real easy for ministers, but I won't be long-winded today. I won't keep you very long. The words are this: transcend, transform, and transfer. So this is what happened when I started thinking about this gathering today. I realized that so many times we get locked into the bottom floor of our conditioned selves. People will say, "Who are you?" And we start, most of us, with giving our name that's not even really our name. It's a name that was chosen by those wonderful people called Mom and Dad. Our fathers and our mothers chose our name, but we'll start off with saying, "My name is so-and-so." And then we'll follow it with, most of the time, talking about the things that are really conditions, not the true self. We don't normally introduce our spiritual self because we're just not used to doing that. If we did that, we might wig everyone out. What would happen if somebody said, "Who are you?" and you just returned with these words, "I am love. I am love. I am agape. I am divine. I am God in drag." Most of us would get a very strange look because people are expecting us to start identifying with the things that are temporary rather than the things that are eternal. Because the eternal is not even a thing. So I was thinking about the word transcend, and for me, I was raised in the church. I mentioned that a little while ago, and how I'm still in recovery and therapy over that. Sometimes I've read the Bible. I actually went to seminary, and I got a degree, and that degree helped me to study the scriptures a lot deeper. And this is one of the reasons I made a shift in my religious beliefs. In fact, I moved away from being religious, period, and moved into being someone who is just a spiritual individual who has no particular labels. That's why I don't choose any religious labels anymore. I love Christians, and I love Jews, and I love Muslims, and Hindus, and Buddhists, and the list goes on and on and on. The 47,000 some different types of religions. But I believe religions are just human beings trying to figure out how to manage the unmanageable. Religion is just based in this conditioned world where we're trying to control that which is beyond control. Where we're trying to name that which is beyond naming. We're trying to label that which is skinless and shameless and labelless. And this is what I mean by transcending. When we transcend what we think we know, we move into the realm of all that's possible. My biggest issues in life has never been the knowing that's down deep. My biggest issue in life has been my own beliefs about what life really is. Belief more than anything else is what's kept me from truth. So I'm releasing what I think I know to open myself up to the all-knowing oneness, that divine thread that runs to, through, for, and as every one of us. So the word transcend to me, means to come up higher. To trans is to change. To send is to rise above. So I believe that if we will learn how to transcend our limited nature, We will move into a realm that is so far beyond the ordinary that we will actually move into the realm of the extraordinary. We can shift in our consciousness because shift happens. Sorry, that's a play on a bumper sticker that was out many years ago. It was a little different, but shift does happen. And sometimes our shift hits the fan. And some of us are just trying to get our shift together. But I believe the whole planet is in the process of ascension. We are shifting the consciousness of this entire planet. That's what this movement is about, is to shift the consciousness of the planet and to move into higher realms of compassion and kindness and generosity and love and truth beyond belief. I may be wrong, but I kind of sense that about this group of people. So you knew I couldn't come here today without a little bit of a quote from Patriji. Anybody familiar with Patriji? Just making sure I was in the right place. He said, when one person becomes enlightened, everything around that person has to change. Every event around that person has to flow into new directions. Every other person who interacts with that enlightened human being becomes somehow, I love this word, modified. I also like the word altered. You know, that's what we used to call these in church. We called them the altar, because in some way we were experiencing an alteration. People would come to the altar and somehow get an alteration. The reason they would get an alteration is because as you grow, your outfits may not fit you anymore. So you need an alteration in your life. As you grow, the same thing happens. This is why I believe I outgrew religion. I honor it, but I think I outgrew it. I think I want to honor all of the great traditions, but the great traditions were traded down to us so that we could move it further along down the road. You know, this is one of the things that really woke me up when I was in seminary. When I was in seminary, one of the things I realized was that Jesus was not a Christian. And boy, that bummed me out. I was like, wait, what? Jesus was not a Christian, and I'm supposed to sign up to be a Christian, but Jesus was not a Christian. And when I found out Buddha was not a Buddhist, this jacked my world up. The Krishna was not a Hindu. Is there anybody else with me? That Muhammad was not a Muslim. In fact, these folks didn't come to start a religion. At the very most, they came to maybe reform their own religion, but to take us past that religious experience into the deepest realm of our spiritual enlightened self. So when Patriji is saying that when you become enlightened, and by the way, it's not just for the great Patriji, this is for us all. We all have within us the spark of enlightenment. This is why we should introduce ourselves to each other as God in drag. We're all beautiful, enlightened beings. Becoming aware of it activates its power in our lives. But every single one of us come from the same source. In fact, all it means when you say a master is it means that they can do whatever it is they do without thinking about it. It doesn't mean there's other subservience. This is one of the reasons that titles sometimes don't serve us well. It just means that you can live your existence and you can do what you do in your spiritual life without thinking about it, because the thinking mind often is the very thing that confines us and starts to define us. Patriji ends this quote with saying this: the effect has to happen. It is the ripple. And how many know that drop? The drop, when it goes in, probably doesn't realize the significance of the signature it's about to make on that water's top surface. But every single one of us were meant to be drops in this beautiful ocean of the divine, to make ripples in our world, to leave our world significantly different because of our particular unique signature than it was when we got here. So I hear this voice saying to me, come up higher, transcend, so that you can shift. And then the next word is transform. Probably to me, one of the most significant examples of that in our human experience is when the caterpillar, actually the larva, becomes a caterpillar, which becomes a butterfly. And did you know the resemblance of the three is so far removed? I mean, the little larva, before it becomes a caterpillar, you can say, oh, you kind of look like your daddy. But the butterfly is absolutely so different than the original form. And did you know every single one of us has this potential for transformation and metamorphosis on the inside of us? But we must activate it. And sometimes it's activated by isolation. And what I mean by isolation is that sometimes we have to go into a cocoon and allow ourselves to be drawn away. This is what I think of as meditation. Every time I go into meditation, I am cocooning a portion of me, so that what comes out that used to crawl beneath will now fly above. You gain your wings in this metamorphosis, in the transformation. The word transform means to go beyond or above the previous form. And in order to do that, there must be a formula change. For there to be a formula change in your life, you have to know that there's a significant reason for the formula to change. Otherwise, you continue to use the same formula over and over again. And this is what I see so much in our churches, in our temples, and our synagogues. It's recycled formulas. And this is one of the reasons it's hard to make the shift and to experience that transformation. So if I transcend and if I transform, I literally have the experience of going beyond the previous form and reincarnating into a new form. This is what I think possibly is meant by some of the teachings on reincarnation. I certainly believe this is what it means when Jesus says to Nicodemus, Nick at Night. That ages me a little bit. But did anybody ever used to watch Nick at Night? No one? Did you see? You saw Nick at Night? Okay, I have one person here. That's the Amen corner. It was a TV show. So I use this as a reference when Nicodemus, he was a part of the Sanhedrin in Jerusalem during the time of Jesus, Yeshua ben Joseph. Nicodemus would come to Jesus at night because he didn't want to be seen by everybody else. And he would have these conversations with Jesus. And one time when he was having this conversation with Jesus, Jesus said, Nicodemus, your only issue is that you need to be born again so that you can see the kingdom of God. 2 chapters before that, he had told the Pharisees and his disciples where the kingdom of God was. And guess where that was? Within. He said the kingdom of God is within you. So he says to Nicodemus, you'll see the kingdom of God when you are born again. Nicodemus thought two things. One, I'm an old man. Nobody's going to be able to talk my mama into this gig. I cannot be born again physically. I'm an old man. And he thought, two, that must mean I have to die to go to heaven. But Jesus was not talking about dying physically so that he could experience a rebirth. He was talking about laying to rest that old conditioned self that was steeped in religious belief systems so that he could emerge with new sight. That's why the word there, be born again so that you can see, is the word perceive. Be born again because the first birth has left you with cloudy lenses. This new birth, you'll be able to see clearly. And this is what I believe happens in our transformation. When we transcend above who we think we are and who everybody else told us we were. See, I'm not connected any longer with my maleness. Whoa. I'm not connected any longer with my Americanness. Because I didn't ask to be born in Georgia. I didn't ask to be born into a Christian home. I didn't ask to be born with the DNA that would pop out brown eyes and eventually a bald head. I didn't choose any of those things. I didn't choose that my DNA structure would call for me to be 6 foot, but then as I settled into my bones, be 5'10". I didn't ask for those things, so therefore I'm not attached to those things. Folks, that's freedom, to no longer be attached to this external temporary vessel. I mean, it even brings you to the place where you're no longer afraid of death because you understand that what we call death in our human world is just a gateway into whatever's next. You realize that Even Einstein said you can't create energy or destroy energy. You might be able to change its shape. You may be able to change the aim of its trajectory, but you cannot destroy it or create it. I'll say it this way. This reminds me of the old preaching days, the old church. Your parents may have decided to have you, but God chose to send you. And you're a beautiful divine being. So, to transform is to go through a dramatic shift, a dramatic change. It's to go from larva to caterpillar to butterfly. One day I'm going to write a book, and the book's going to be titled An Interview with a Caterpillar. Because I want to ask the caterpillar if it thinks it can fly. Or maybe sing the song to that caterpillar, I believe I can fly. And that caterpillar's probably going to laugh at me. Because more than likely, if that caterpillar has not experienced a shift in its own consciousness, it could never believe that it can go from a worm that crawls beneath the grass to a butterfly that flies above it. But it has that potential in it. But did you know potential is like dynamite? If you don't light the fuse, it's never going to blow up. And that's why these groups get together, I think, is to light the fuse. Is to light that spark that's within you, to fan the flame, to expand your ability to see and to grasp your luminosity and your potential. Now I feel like I'm preaching for some reason. Every once in a while, it comes back. So I believe that we can transcend and transform. And here's why it's important. Because we are always transferring. We are always passing energy along. Even if you don't touch someone physically, you still have an energetic aura. And is that energy that we're carrying around affecting the world for the good, or is it infecting the world for expanded, not so good? See, I'm coming in contact with people all the time, even in traffic. Boy, isn't that fun. You drove from Iowa. How many cities did you go through where the traffic was bumper to bumper? And in those moments, you do what you can to not be frustrated, but I've got places to go and people to see. And why is it that everyone that doesn't drive as good as me gets in front of me? You know what I'm talking about? And that energy starts to move, that frustration, that little bit of a temper starts to move. I can feel it. It moves from my ankles up to my knees, and it starts its journey up because it wants to get up here in the head where it can create all kinds of craziness. Energetically, I'm constantly transferring to other people. I don't want to liken it to a virus, but it's kind of like a virus. And am I passing along healing, well-being, or am I passing along disease and discomfort? Am I passing along hatred, or am I passing along love? Am I passing along peace and stillness, or am I passing along more and more anxiety? See, when we transcend and we transform, people will be literally healed just by being in our presence. Imagine being so powerful that you can just walk through a room and people miraculously experience the divine. I mean, I know that it means you can't wear it as a badge if they didn't know it was you. But just imagine the beauty of being able to shift the rooms that we walk into, not so that we can get accolades, but so that we can know that our purpose is being fulfilled in this life. To let go of the need to have a badge of approval. To literally just want to be a gentle, generous, compassionate, loving touch for all of humanity. I mean, we can do it. I'd say we can. We can do it. I know that I'm going to be transferring energetically to the people I come in contact with. And this is one of the reasons that I choose to heal any of those internal traumas. I'll say this and then I'll close. I believe that if we don't transform our trauma, ultimately we will transfer it. We'll transfer it into our relationships, on our jobs, to our children, to our husbands or wives. We'll transfer it at the family reunions. We'll transfer it at the voter box. We'll transfer it at some kind of political rally. If we don't transform it, we're going to transfer it. And I don't know about you, but I think I see enough dis-ease in the world. And when I say dis-ease, most of us think cancer or diabetes. When I'm talking about dis-ease, the word dis-ease just means disconnected from ease. That's all it means. Or uneasy. I don't know if anybody's told you, but if they haven't, I'm going to ask you to trust me with this. Life was meant to be enjoyed, not survived. Everybody smile at me. Life was meant to be enjoyed, not survived. Life was meant to be spent trying to make sure the worst case scenario doesn't happen. Life was meant to be spent joyous, happy, prosperous, celebrating. Life was meant to be fully enjoyed. So many religious people that I meet, maybe I've been hanging around folks, but so many of the religious people I meet act like they've been baptized in vinegar. You know, you've met those folks that they just, yes, I love God. But the degree on their chin is like, wow. You know, and they'll tell you in the church, they'll say it this way, yes, I love God, just get saved and you can be like me. And I go, no, thanks, I'd rather smoked up. Life was meant to be enjoyed. Life was meant to be something that is vigorous and prosperous and healthy. I mean, I'm just saying, I think we should flip the script a little bit, especially when it comes to spiritual people, to get grounded enough that what we're sharing with the world is actually practical. Because the word practical means something that can be practiced. And I think that we should make this simple, easy. There's no ins and outs. There's just us. That's why I say to our community, First Unity Spiritual Campus St. Pete, one of the reasons that I am the way I am is because I tell people, look, we may not be a church or a spiritual community for everyone, but we are the spiritual community for anyone. And what I mean by that is not everybody likes to go to Burger King, even if they have a really good Impossible Whopper. Not everybody wants to go to Walmart. Some people want to shop at Target, right? Not everybody wants to go to Universal Studios. Some people want to go to SeaWorld. We all have preferences, but our doors are open to anyone. Not everybody's going to be able to deal with my style. I'm okay with that. I used to want everybody to like me until I realized that was impossible. I do my best to like everybody, but there's some people, you know, y'all know what I'm saying. You just got the picture of their face in your head. There's some people that are not that easy to like, but it's not about us needing universal affirmation. It's about us connecting with the affirmation of the internal universe instead of the external world. So this is an invitation. I'm going to go back to Patriji's quote because we start there, we end there. It's a great bookend. When one person, and as I say that, just maybe pat yourself on the chest. I'm that person. When one person becomes enlightened, everything around that person has to change. Every event around that person has to flow into a new direction. Every other person who interacts with that enlightened human being becomes somehow modified. The effect has to happen because it's the ripple effect. So the invitation today, no matter how enlightened you are at this current moment, is still yet to come up a little higher. Transcend yet again. Transform so that what you're transferring to the world around you is healing and light and love and goodness and joy and peace. The very things that we really all want. We can be within our own selves. Take just a moment, if you would, maybe close your eyes. I'll invite you to receive a deep breath in through the nose. And release it. And I'm going to ask us for another breath in through the nose in just a moment. And then on the release, I'm going to ask us to sound the Om together, if you would. Preparing now for a deep breath. Breathe in. And And how about one more, just because we can? Breathe in. And And just like that sound has a vibration that is transferred from person to person, we are the walking, talking, smiling, loving, vibrational frequency of the divine. And so it is. So it is. God bless you all. Namaste. Yes, absolutely.
Wow. What and excellent. Thank you very much for being here and see the inline topic of what he was covering. It is exactly matters to what Patriji talks about. And wow, what a great talk. I really liked all the 3 words. Of course, the best one is transcend. Yeah. So lovely, beautiful. So before we do some felicitation, any questions, please? On any of the 3 words to Mr. John. Did you like it? Yes.
For today's speech, what inspired you to give us 3 words of transcend, transform, and transfer?
You know, honestly, typically when I'm invited somewhere to speak, I go ahead and do my best to tune into what I feel is drawing. And I just felt drawn toward those 3 words. Again, I love words. I like the trans in all of those words because that is about change. It really is the word trans, the root word. And I felt drawn toward each one. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Another word. So we'll play the music, please.
Thank you.